So let's get into actually what you do so people know.
Okay.
What do mediators, facilitators, communication trainers, what do you folks do? Describe what the profession's about.
So PCRC, the organization I work for, has more than just a mediation division. It has a facilitation department, and it has a community engagement organization. And we have people who are trained to do a number of different things in areas that bring people together to communicate and collaborate and problem solve together. Mediators are normally involved in helping people resolve disputes. So there's a component of dispute, differences, conflict, where mediators are involved. And mediators are trained neutrals who come into the situation and help bring people together. We like to do it in a face-to-face way. There's so much people get from each other in communicating through body language, tone of voice. Those are all important aspects of communication, especially when there's conflict, especially when there's emotions involved. And so we want everyone to have the benefit of the full spectrum of communication so that they can effectively work out conflicts together. So mediators are not going to be judging. They're not going to be problem solving for people. One of PCRC's core values and mission is to help empower people to resolve disputes and problem solve by them on their own together. We're not going to be doing that for people. That doesn't really teach people the skills that we want them to practice together. So mediators are not going to insert themselves in the problem-solving process. They're not going to be judging the merits of one person's perspective over another. They're not being asked to reconcile different points of view. A mediator is simply there to guide the process of communicating and working together. And we have a 4-step process at PCRC that involves having people speak directly to the mediators first, in turn, and then we have them reflect to one another what they heard each other say, and then we, when people have gotten their issues out on the table and feel heard by each other, there's a component of problem solving and brainstorming to see what sorts of solutions might be amenable, and then people can put it in a good faith agreement. So that's the mediation process, and mediators are there simply as guides through that process. So
this is really different than, like in sports, they have something called binding arbitration, where they hear the two sides and you're a judge. This is different. This is the answers in the collective and between the two parties, right? They're going to come to the agreement. You're not judging.
That's right. So an arbitrator is like an adjudicator who will be handing down a decision or an award, and the parties will need to abide by it. And so and that's often a quicker process than litigation, and it's often chosen as a way to help people quickly reach agreements. And it's often done in commercial kinds of disputes. And a lot of people do confuse mediation with arbitration. And the key difference is that the mediator is not judging and is not going to be making the decisions and not handing down some kind of an award. The parties are going to be doing that work together.
Okay.
You asked about facilitation.
Yes.
And so that's a process that facilitations don't necessarily have a component of conflict. A facilitator is often a trained mediator who is helping groups of people achieve some kind of group goal. So helping them set agendas, helping them have meetings happen in an orderly fashion, helping people reach decisions together and taking notes and then following up and helping people develop next steps. It's more about group dynamics, group goals.
Okay, I wanted to make sure we got to a couple of graphics you brought along, and if there's time I'm going to circle back and ask you about the skills, but I want to make sure we get to this. You brought along a graphic that has bullet points on keys to resolving conflicts, and I thought I would read the bullet points and then you can comment on the steps.
Go ahead.
Okay, so the first thing you say is cool off.
Okay.
Does that take a shower or what?
So that's very important, because sometimes when people are in the heat of a conflict or frustrations or anger, a part of their brain is taken over that is more about reacting protecting them from danger. It's the limbic system, and it's the part that helps us to, it's a survival part of the brain, the most ancient part of the brain. It's not necessarily the part that's the best at communicating skillfully and problem solving. So what we ask people to do is first think about just kind of getting calm. And if that requires taking a little bit of a time away from each other and saying, I want to talk with you, but I think I need 5 minutes, or taking a deep breath, whatever works for you to kind of cool down, get composed, and get ready to start working with somebody to see where you are, what your different perspectives are, and do some problem solving. And then that ultimately does engage a different part of the brain that's more effective at doing those other higher level tasks.
I got to remember that, because my first sense in a conflict is to try to resolve it, because I don't like the conflict. But I think you have to wait till you're a little bit cooled off, I guess, huh?
It actually does have a benefit.
So the next step, you say, is define the problem.
Right. So what you're going to do with the other person is see where you are both coming from. And one way to be effective if someone's coming at you in a frustrated or angry way is to just reflect to them what you heard them say. That can be kind of disarming, and it's not expected, because most of the time our first reaction is to react and respond to what they're saying with what we feel and how we feel about what the other person is saying. One thing we teach in our communication skills classes is to just take a minute to reflect back to the person, summarize what they, not just the content of what they are saying, but the feeling you think that they're having behind it. So you seem frustrated because you feel I wasn't listening to you, or you feel disrespected because of something that I was doing that was maybe not focused on what we were supposed to be doing together. Whatever the issue is, if you reflect back and summarize with the other person what you perceive them to be feeling and thinking, it often helps bring people to a place of receptivity to what you have to say. And so you want to be able to hear what their perspective is on the problem, and then you can share yours. Yeah,
it's interesting. I wish I could remember the study, but there was some case study that it was between union and management, and a mediator came in and didn't allow the conversation to go any further than the person had to recapitulate what the other person said, and they had to agree that that's exactly what they said before they could give their opinion. And supposedly it cut the tension by some measure in half. Like, you cannot make your counter argument till I've told you exactly what you said, and in the way you said it. It sounds like similar to.
And then you can end that with, did I understand correctly?
Yeah.
And so then that gets people talking, and then it also creates receptivity to what you have to say. So defining the problem is hearing what both perspectives are.